What's up guys, I'm randomfrankp. Today we're going to review the newly released Corsair Gaming K95 Platinum RGB keyboard. Thankfully, as a tech reviewer, I got this early, so I've been using it for the past few weeks. So I'll break it down for you guys in my review, go over all its new features in this new Platinum Edition, talk about the pros and cons, all that good stuff in case you want to pick up the K95 Platinum. First off, taking a look at it, the K95 Platinum is a mix between the K70 and the original K95. We still have that nice brushed aluminum finish that gives the keyboard a nice stealthy and professional look, I think. But taking a look into some of the new additions, on the left side we have 6 macro keys. They are highlighted with these gray textured keycaps, and you can program them to whatever function you want. And for a gaming keyboard, having these on the side is a great addition. On top, this set of buttons here are slightly changed. We now have a profile switching button, which I'll address this more in a minute, followed by the brightness key and a Windows lock button. Then to the right side of the board, we have updated media keys. The volume wheel is now slightly bigger and is noticeably smoother than previous ones. A minor change, but I can dig it. On the top of the keyboard, we still have a USB pass-through there on the back side for connecting things like, a mouse or a headset, a flash drive, anything like that. We also now have this light bar that's gonna run along the back. This little strip is also linked to the RGB lights, so you can now have this just a little bit more glow shining behind your keyboard. And lastly, before we move on the bottom, that's also slightly changed as well. We still have some rubber pads in the corners to prevent scratching, plus feet to elevate its backside, but we now have this sort of cross section here for cable management. You can route things like your headset cable on the bottom now to avoid your cables, which would usually be dangling in front of you or on the side of your keyboard. Just a little addition there, but it's going to help tidy up your peripherals cable management. Again, just all slight upgrades, but I do appreciate them. Then lastly, inside the box, they do include a dual layer detachable wrist rest. It easily clicks into place on the bottom of the keyboard for less pressure on your wrists. And the rubber part is a magnet, so you can just take that on and off if you'd like. Not too sure why though. Now let's talk about the switches inside the K95 Platinum. I've been using my K70 Rapid Fire since release, and this too takes advantage of those CHERRY Speed switches. They actuate as a key press at only 1.2 millimeters versus the typical 2 millimeters, so your gaming and key presses will actually be quicker. And I always do it so you can hear how they sound, but we'll do a sound test for these CHERRY Speed switches. Now, people in the past were always quick to dismiss these speed switches, but it's true, they are faster than your average mechanical keyboard since they actuate at only 1.2 millimeters versus the regular 2 millimeters, and that's 40% quicker. So when you're online gaming or something, that is gonna give you a slight edge. And if you don't believe me, just go out and find one at Best Buy or something and try it. These speed switches actually do feel quicker. Now yes, when it does come to online gaming, things like your internet speeds, the latency, your monitor refresh rate, that's all gonna play into it, but there's definitely an upside in having a slight advantage with these speed switches here. I'd say they're pretty quiet switches as well, and comparatively speaking, they're kind of similar to brown switches in the sense that they only require 45 grams of force to actuate. The one thing I also noticed, the spacebar on my K95 Platinum feels much more solid and less cheap like it did on my K70. Listen to this. The new one just feels and kind of sounds more solid on my K95 versus the K70 where it just felt cheap and it sounded like it was falling apart. So that was nice to hear for this new keyboard. And the final things to go over before I give you guys my thoughts on it is the lighting and software. I mentioned earlier on the top left side of the keyboard, we now have this new profile switching button because out of the box, this keyboard actually has some lighting effects pre-saved onto it. There are 3 profiles to pick from and they can be changed inside the Corsair Q2 software. Now I assume they did this to kind of, make it more user-friendly out of the box because their software definitely wasn't the easiest to use in the past. But now the Q2 is much better, but there are the 3 profiles now in addition with that button. And just like previous releases, inside you can go into the software and pick what kind of lighting effect you want on your keyboard and save it to your default profile or change up one of the 3 onboard ones. There are the usual effects that we've seen and even things, like a music visualizer for music pulsing on your keyboard. The rainbow wave is the lighting effect by default, but I'm someone who likes to go in and create my own sort of lighting effects by, layering different ones on top of each other to create a cool look for it, and they make it really easy. Each key is individually backlit, as well as that light strip behind the keyboard. You can go and change each of the lighting zones for that as well. So it's pretty easy stuff. And then again, for the macros, you have your own sort of tab for recording and creating your own functions for that. It is pretty self-explanatory. You can just pretty much make whatever key or task you would need in a game or something for one of those 6 macro keys. For me, I like setting the macros to be like certain passwords, or have it launch some websites, or even some software, things like that. Just makes things a lot quicker and easier. And again, for gaming keyboards, I think having some macros are a must, and having this 6th on the side are definitely a nice addition. But altogether, this keyboard is legit. I'm a big fan of it. I like the way it's made. It's very, very solid and it looks nice. Plus you have those awesome speed switches. But what kind of confuses me, that this keyboard retails for $199.99 or $200. But the original K95, which had 18 macros instead of the 6 here, that launched for, I believe it was $190. So you're paying more here and you're getting less macro keys, which just kind of confuses me in the end. I would have liked to have seen this a little bit cheaper. I think it would help kind of sell some more units. And other than that, 2 very minor cons I wanted to bring up. One, I just wish the lighting was a little bit brighter. There are 3 brightness settings, and I feel like just 1 or 2 more would have made the keyboard's really cool RGB lighting effects pop just a little bit more. That's always been a complaint of mine, just a little bit brighter keys. And then secondly, it's always a double-edged sword, and I've said it again with previous reviews of these keyboards. That brushed aluminum finish is great. It looks extremely nice, but it is a pain in the ass to keep clean because when it's in your room, very fine dust particles over time, it gets caught in those really fine lines in the brushed metal. It just makes it really hard to maintain that nice appearance. But other than that, the K95 Platinum really impressed me. It's actually going to be replacing my K70 rapid fire keyboard that I've been using since release. It's altogether just really solid. I love the way it looks. It feels really great with those speed switches, and yes, they are quicker. The macros are always a plus, and obviously the RGB lights are going to appeal to that huge craze that's been going on for the past 2 years. Altogether, a very solid keyboard. I just wish it was a tad bit cheaper. But that'll do it, guys, for my review of the Corsair K95 RGB Platinum keyboard. Hope you enjoyed. I'll put the link to this in the description down below so you can check it out if you're interested. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to show your support. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at randomfrankp. And lastly, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Well, I'm randomfrankp. Hope you enjoyed. Have a good day.